Far away in the deep cold sky, a silver starship moved slowly between the stars. Inside the starship, a group of alien girls sat together in a bright hall. Their eyes glowed like shining stones. Their skin carried strange colors that no human had ever seen. They were young, smart, and powerful, and they loved to look at other worlds, and today, their eyes were fixed on a small blue planet far below. That planet was Earth. The alien girls laughed as they watched the Earth on their great screen. "Look at them," one of the girls said, her voice sharp and playful. "They fight with small weapons, they run in fear, they are weak." Another laughed louder, holding her stomach as if the joke was too much. "They call themselves strong, but they cannot even fly without machines," she said. Their voices filled the hall like music made of pride. They thought humans were nothing. They thought Earth was a toy. The leader of the alien girls sat higher on a crystal chair. Her hair floated like fire in the air. Her eyes were bright as burning suns. She looked at Earth and gave a small smile. "Humans are simple," she said. "They build, they break, they dream, they fall, and still they call themselves great." Her words made the others laugh again. They laughed and laughed as if Earth was only a game for them. On the great screen, the humans were shown walking in cities, driving cars, and working in fields. The aliens saw humans pushing carts, carrying tools, and shouting in markets. To them it looked slow, messy, and funny. "Look at that one." A girl pointed at a man carrying heavy boxes. "He sweats like a river for such small work," she said. More laughter echoed in the hall. They watched soldiers training, but their guns looked like toys to the aliens. They saw people dancing, but the aliens thought the moves were clumsy. Every human action seemed weak to them. The more they watched, the more they laughed. But inside, the laughter was also pride. The aliens were proud of their own power. They could move mountains with their machines. They could travel between stars in a single breath. To them, Earth was nothing but dust, and humans were nothing but children. The leader raised her hand, and the hall grew quiet. Her smile was calm, but her eyes burned with curiosity. "Let us go," she said. The other girls looked at her with surprise. "Go? To that small planet?" one asked. "Yes," the leader replied. "We will visit this Earth. We will see these humans with our own eyes, and we will laugh even louder when we stand among them." The girls cheered with excitement. The idea of walking on Earth, of playing with humans, felt like a fun game to them. They imagined humans running in fear, humans bowing their heads, humans looking up at them as gods. The aliens thought it would be easy. The aliens thought it would be funny. But in the silence of space, the blue planet turned slowly. The seas moved, the forest breathed, the mountains stood tall. Earth was quiet but strong. The aliens could not see it yet. They could not understand, they only laughed. But their laughter would not last forever. For on Earth lived men and women who carried strength not in weapons, but in heart. And one man, unknown to them yet, would change everything. As the starship moved closer to Earth, the laughter of the alien girls rang through the hall once more. They thought it was the laugh of winners, but it was only the laugh before the storm. The silver starship entered the dark side of Earth, its lights hidden like shadows in the sky. The alien girls pressed their faces close to the great glass window, their eyes wide with excitement. Below them stretched oceans, cities, mountains, and lights blinking like tiny stars on the ground. It looked smaller than they imagined, weaker than their own shining world, yet strangely alive. The leader raised her hand and the ship slowed. Her voice was calm but carried command. "We do not go as conquerors," she said. "We go as watchers. We will walk among them and see their lives, and we will prove with our eyes how weak they are." The other girls smiled, their laughter soft but sharp like knives in the dark. The ship landed far away from the crowded human cities. It hid itself deep in the forest, covered by mist and tall trees. No human eyes saw it. No human ears heard its roar. The alien girls stepped out, their boots pressing into Earth's soil for the first time. They looked at the ground, the air, the night sky, and laughed again. "This world smells old," one girl said. "It smells like dust and dirt." They touched the trees with curious ands. "This wood breaks so easily," another said, snapping a branch as if it were nothing. They picked up rocks and crushed them like sand. Every simple act made them laugh louder. To them, Earth was soft, fragile, powerless. Then their bodies shimmered with light, and they changed their forms. Their alien skin turned to human skin. Their glowing eyes faded to simple colors. Their strange beauty was hidden behind normal shapes. Now they looked like young women from Earth. "Perfect disguise," one whispered. "Now let us see these humans closely." They moved through the forest and walked toward a nearby town. The night was quiet, the wind cool, and the lights of the town glowed in the distance. When they reached the streets, they saw humans everywhere. Some walked quickly with tired faces, some laughed with friends, some sat alone in silence. The alien girls watched them with interest. "They do not even see us," one girl said, almost disappointed. "They are too busy with their small lives." They entered markets filled with smells of food and voices of people. They saw children running with simple toys. They saw men and women carrying bags of fruit and bread. The aliens giggled, pointing at the humans. "Look how weak they are," one said. "They need food all the time. They cannot even survive without eating every few hours." The others nodded, their eyes shining with playful pride. But then, something made them pause. Across the market, through the moving crowd, they noticed one man. He was not large, not covered in armor, not shining with power. He looked simple, almost ordinary, but the way he walked was calm. The way his eyes moved was steady. There was no fear in him, no rush, no weakness. The alien girls watched him more closely. He lifted a heavy sack for an old man, his hands strong but gentle. He stopped a runaway cart before it hit a child, his movements fast but calm. He spoke few words, but his voice carried weight. Something about him felt different. Something about him felt dangerous. One alien girl whispered, "Strange. He does not look strong, but my heart does not laugh when I see him." Another shook her head. "He is only a man, do not be fooled." But deep inside, they all felt something they could not name. The laughter that filled their journey began to fade. It did not vanish, but it grew quieter, softer, unsure. The leader of the alien girls narrowed her glowing eyes. Her voice dropped low as she looked at the man. "Let us watch him," she said. "Let us see what makes this human walk with such calm." The others nodded, their playful smiles still there but weaker than before. For the first time, the aliens did not laugh. For the first time, they felt curiosity turning into a strange, sharp unease. The man walked away into the night, unaware of the eyes that followed him. The alien girls moved silently through the crowd, their steps like shadows. The game had begun, but this game would not end with laughter. It would end with a lesson the aliens never expected. The man walked through the night streets with steady steps. He was not tall like a giant, nor dressed like a soldier. His clothes were plain, his face simple, yet something about him drew the eyes. The alien girls followed from a distance, their disguises perfect, their hearts restless. They had laughed at every human they saw, but this one man stole their laughter away. He stopped near a narrow alley where a woman struggled with a broken cart. Her basket had fallen, fruits scattered across the stones. Without a word, the man bent down, lifted the cart with ease, and helped her gather the fruit. The woman thanked him with a smile, but he only nodded and walked away. The alien girls whispered among themselves, "Why did he waste time for her?" "She is weak, she is nothing," one said. Another answered, "Strange, he gained nothing, yet he helped as if it mattered." The leader kept silent, her golden eyes fixed on him. Further along, the man crossed a street where a group of young men argued, their voices loud, fists ready to strike. The man stepped into the middle, his voice calm but firm. "Enough," he said. Not loud, yet every ear heard him. The young men froze, their anger cooling. and after a moment they walked away. The alien girls stared in disbelief. No weapons, no power, only words, and yet they obeyed. One whispered. The leader's lips curved in the smallest frown. "This is not normal," she said. The man continued walking, unaware of the strange eyes upon him. He passed the market, the river, the quiet streets where dogs barked in the dark. Every step was steady, every action filled with quiet strength. The aliens felt something they had never felt before. Curiosity mixed with unease. They remembered their own world where strength meant fire, machines, and control. On their planet, the weak were ignored. The strong ruled with sharp hands, but here was a man with no crown, no weapon, no throne. Yet he moved as if the world listened to him. The alien girls did not understand, and that made them restless. At last, the man reached a small house at the edge of the town. It was simple, with wooden walls and a dim light inside. He opened the door and children rushed to greet him. They clung to his arms, laughing, smiling. The man's face softened. He lifted the smallest child with care. The aliens watched from the shadows, silent now. They had never seen warriors smile this way. They had never seen strength mixed with gentleness. Inside the house, the man shared food with the children. He spoke to them in low tones, teaching, guiding, protecting. The aliens pressed closer, their hearts strangely heavy. "This is his power," the leader whispered, almost to herself. Not fire, not speed, not fear, but something deeper. Still, the younger aliens resisted. "It is only kindness," one argued. "Kindness is weakness, it breaks in war." But even as she spoke, her voice carried doubt, for they all had felt the quiet force in the man's presence, a force stronger than their machines, stronger than their laughter. The night grew late. The house grew quiet, but the alien girls did not leave. They stayed outside, hidden in the trees, watching the man as he sat by the window. His eyes looked at the stars, calm and steady. It was as if he was speaking to the sky without words. The leader felt her heart beat faster. "This man is not what he seems," she whispered. Her companions looked at her in silence, for they could not deny it. The wind moved through the leaves, carrying the sound of the night. The alien girls stood together, no longer laughing, no longer mocking. The man inside the house had changed something in them, something small but powerful. They had come to Earth for a game, for laughter. But now the game had turned into something else. The man was ordinary, yet not ordinary, and they knew their journey had only begun. The leader turned away from the house at last, her eyes burning with new fire. "Tomorrow," she said, "we test him." The others nodded, their hearts both afraid and excited. For in that simple house, in that simple man, they had seen something they could not explain. And the mystery pulled them deeper, step by step, into a story they would never forget. The morning sun rose over the small town, golden light falling across the roofs and streets. Inside their hidden place in the forest, the alien girls stood together, their faces serious. They had laughed at humans, mocked their weakness, but the man they had watched was different. He had no weapon, no power, yet he carried a force that unsettled them. And now, the leader had made a decision. "Today," she said, her voice cold and sharp, "we test him." Her companions nodded, though their eyes carried both doubt and excitement. They wanted to prove to themselves that the man was nothing, only human, only weak. But deep inside, they feared the truth. The alien girls spread through the town in secret, their bodies still disguised as human women, their powers hidden under simple forms. They waited in the shadows, planning small traps. The first test was simple. They loosened the ropes of a cart filled with heavy barrels and left it on a slope. When the man walked by, the cart rolled down toward a child, fast and heavy. The girl who had set the trap whispered, "Now we see." The man turned at the sound, his eyes sharp and clear. Without hesitation, he ran forward, pushed the child aside, and caught the cart. The barrels shook, but he held firm, his muscles tight, his face calm. The cart stopped. The child cried, but was safe. The mother rushed forward, thanking the man with tears in her eyes. The alien girls watched from the shadows, their hearts beating strangely. One whispered, "Impossible," he moved before fear touched him. The second test was more dangerous. Another alien created sparks in the wires of a shop. The fire began to spread, smoke rising, people screaming. In panic, the man was there again, stepping into the flames. He covered his face with cloth, carried buckets of water, and guided people out. His skin burned. His arms blackened with ash, but he did not stop. He carried even the weakest, even the old, until all were safe. When the fire died, he stood covered in smoke but unbroken. The aliens stared in silence, their mocking smiles gone. The leader's voice was low. "Still too simple, we will test him again." The third test came as night fell. They sent a gang of rough men, shadows paid in coins. The men cornered the earthly man in an alley, knives in their hands. The alien girls watched from the rooftops, waiting to see fear at last. But the man did not beg, did not run. His voice was steady as he said, "Leave this path. It will only bring you pain." The men laughed and rushed forward, but the man moved with quiet strength. He struck not with rage but with control, pushing them aside, breaking their blades. When it was done, the gang lay groaning on the ground. The man walked away, his steps as calm as the stars. The aliens could not laugh anymore. They had tested his body, his courage, his spirit, and each time he had risen higher, the leader felt a strange fire burning in her chest. Not anger, not fear, but something new. Respect. One of the younger aliens whispered, "Perhaps he is not like the others." Another shook her head, her voice trembling. "No, he is still human. He must break soon." But none of them truly believed their own words. That night they gathered again in the forest, the stars burning above. The leader stood before them, her face caught between pride and doubt. "This is no ordinary man," she admitted, her voice low. "He carries a strength we do not understand, and it grows stronger with every test." Her words left the group silent, their laughter now a memory. They had come to Earth to mock, to play, to laugh, but now they felt something heavier, deeper. For the first time, the aliens began to wonder if Earth was more than dust, if humans were more than fragile toys. And the leader closed her eyes, her heart uncertain. "This is not the end," she whispered. "This is only the beginning." And in the silence of the forest, the alien girls agreed. The game had turned into a challenge, but the challenge was no longer theirs alone. It belonged also to the earthly man, and he had passed every trial with a power they could not name. The forest was dark, filled with the sound of crickets and the whisper of leaves. The alien girls stood together around a silver flame, their eyes glowing softly. Only yesterday their voices were filled with laughter, but now the night was heavy. With silence, they had watched the earthly man face danger, fire, and violence. They had seen him stand strong when others would fall, and though they wanted to laugh again, no sound came. One girl broke the silence, her voice shaking. "Why? Did he not fear? Why did he not run?" Another answered, her tone uncertain. "He is still only human, but something is different in him." Their words hung in the air like smoke. For the first time, the aliens were not sure of themselves. The leader looked at the stars above, her face hard to read. "He is not strong like us," she said. "He cannot fly, he cannot break stone with his hands. But he carries something else, something I cannot name." Her words struck the group like thunder. The same leader who had laughed the loudest was now speaking with doubt. The laughter in their hearts grew weak, softer, almost ashamed. The younger ones tried to bring it back. "Perhaps he is lucky," one said quickly. "Perhaps each time he only survived by chance." But even as she spoke, her voice carried no confidence. They all remembered his calm eyes, his steady hands, his quiet courage. Luck could not explain it. The leader rose, her cloak flowing behind her like a shadow. "We will watch him more," she declared. "Not to laugh, not to mock, but to understand." The girls looked at one another in silence. They did not want to admit the truth, but deep inside their hearts had already changed. The next day, the aliens followed him again. This time they stayed hidden, watching from the edges of the crowd. They saw him working with others, lifting wood, fixing roofs, teaching children. He smiled sometimes, but his smile was not weak. It was the smile of someone who carried heavy burdens yet still chose kindness. The aliens felt something strange in their chests. It was not laughter, it was not anger. It was respect, though none of them dared to say it aloud. As the sun fell, the man sat beside the river. He skipped a stone across the water, watching the ripples spread. The alien girls stood unseen behind the trees, their hearts restless. One whispered, "Why do I feel heavy inside when I see him?" Another answered, "Because he is not like us and yet he makes us feel small." The words cut through the group like a blade. Silence followed, deep and long. That night in the forest, they gathered again. No laughter echoed in the air. Instead, their voices were low, filled with confusion. One said, "We came here to laugh at Earth, to play with humans as if they were toys, but this man, he makes me question myself." The others lowered their eyes, unable to answer. The leader stood tall, her voice steady but soft. "Perhaps our laughter was pride. Perhaps it was blindness," she said. Her companions looked at her in shock, for never before had their leader spoken such words. "But," she continued, "do not mistake my doubt for surrender. We will keep watching, and if he truly carries this strength, then we must understand it." The silver flame in the middle of the forest flickered. The alien girls looked at one another, their laughter now only a memory. Something had shifted, something deep and powerful. They had mocked Earth, mocked humanity, but one man had taken their laughter and turned it into silence. The leader closed her eyes, her voice low. "Laughing was easy," she whispered. "Understanding will be hard." Her words echoed like a prophecy in the night, and the others felt it too. The laugh that once filled their hearts was gone. In its place, a quiet respect had begun to grow. And once respect enters the heart, it never leaves the same way it came. The town slept under a blanket of stars, but the alien girls did not rest. They moved like shadows through the streets, their eyes watching every corner, every sound. The earthly man had unsettled them. His quiet strength had silenced their laughter. But still, they believed there must be a moment where he would break. Tonight they would see his true limits. The leader spoke in a low voice as they walked. "Courage is easy in small trials, but when real danger comes, humans show their weakness." The younger aliens nodded, eager to believe her words. Yet their hearts carried doubt, the memory of his calm eyes still haunting them. At the edge of the town, the earth began to shake. A storm had broken far away, its winds ripping across the land. The river rose high, crashing against its banks. Houses shook, roofs tore away, people cried out in fear. The alien girls stood upon the hill, watching chaos unfold. "This will be his end," one whispered. "No man can stand against the storm." Down below, the man ran through the streets. He shouted for people to leave their homes, guided children to higher ground. When a tree crashed across the road, he pulled it aside with bleeding hands. When the floodwaters swept through the square, he carried the old and the weak on his back. The aliens watched, their breaths caught. Every action should have broken him, but he did not fall. Every wave struck, yet he stood. The leader narrowed her glowing eyes. "This is not possible," she whispered. "A body of flesh cannot fight against the storm." But her voice carried less certainty now. The man moved like a force greater than his body, not power of muscle alone, but something deeper, something unseen. Then came the darkest test. The river wall broke, water pouring into the town like a beast unleashed. A child was swept away, her small hands reaching for help. Without a second thought, the man leapt into the raging flood. The current dragged him down, pulled him against sharp stones, but he did not release his grip. With one arm he held the child high, with the other he fought the wild water. The aliens gasped as they watched, their hearts racing with fear and awe. No machine, no alien tool could have saved her as he did. But the earthly man, weak by their measure, carried her back to the shore. He collapsed on the ground, coughing, his body bruised and bleeding. But when the child cried, he smiled and placed her gently in her mother's arms. The people of the town gathered around him, their faces filled with gratitude, and still, he asked for nothing. He stood again, shaking, and returned to the flood to save others. The alien girls felt something heavy pressing inside their chests. Not pride, not laughter, but something almost painful. One whispered, "Why does he give so much? He could leave. He could save only himself." Another answered softly, "Because he does not see himself first, he sees others." Their words fell like stones in their hearts, for in their world, no one would act this way. In their world, strength was selfish, survival was cold. But here, before their eyes, was a power they had never known. By dawn, the storm had passed, the town broken but alive. The man stood among the ruins, his body scarred but his spirit unshaken. The people bowed their heads, some whispered prayers, others wept. The aliens watched from the shadows, their laughter, long dead. The leader's face was pale, her golden eyes wide. "This power," she said slowly, "is not in his flesh. It is not in his blood. It comes from somewhere else." The others looked at her, their pride broken, their voices quiet. "What is it then?" one asked, trembling. The leader did not answer at once, for the truth burned in her chest like fire. Finally she spoke. "It is the strength of his heart." The words hung in the morning air, and for the first time, the alien girls bowed their heads, not in shame, not in defeat, but in respect, for the hidden power they had mocked now stood clear before them, and they knew nothing on their world could match it. The storm was gone, the sky clear once more, but the alien girls could not forget what they had seen. The earthly man had stood against the flood, had saved lives without fear, and had shown a power no machine could explain. Their hearts, once filled with laughter, now carried questions too heavy to ignore. That night, in the hidden hall of their ship, the leader sat alone. The others whispered among themselves. But she searched for answers. Her hand touched the glowing screen before her, and with a command, the ship opened its archives. Information about Earth flooded the air, voices, images, stories of humans through time. The leader leaned forward, her golden eyes fixed. She watched the story of Earth unfold, not in one life, but in thousands of years. She saw humans building fire in caves, raising stone walls, painting their hopes on rock. She saw wars that burned nations, but also peace where enemies became brothers. She saw weakness and strength, tangled together, and always she saw survival. The younger aliens gathered behind her, curious, restless. "What is this?" one asked. "History," the leader answered, her voice low. "The story of their world." The images shifted again, showing explorers sailing across endless seas, men and women walking into deserts, into storms, into mountains, knowing death could wait at every step. But still they walked, still they dreamed, still they reached. The aliens whispered among themselves. "Why do they risk so much?" one asked. "Because they believe in something beyond themselves," the leader replied quietly. More voices filled the hall. Voices of human leaders, human poets, human fighters. Some spoke of freedom, some of justice, some of love. The aliens listened. Their hearts pulled in strange directions, for they had believed strength was only in power, in control, in weapons. But these humans spoke of strength in sacrifice, in dreams, in the will to stand even when broken. One screen showed a soldier standing before an army to protect his people. Another showed a scientist who gave his life for discovery. Another showed mothers and fathers working through pain to raise children with hope. The aliens' eyes grew wide, their pride melting like ice in the sun. The leader's voice trembled as she spoke. "This is why he is different. He is not alone. He carries the blood of survivors, of dreamers, of fighters, of builders." Her words echoed in the hall. The others lowered their eyes, ashamed of their laughter. They had thought Earth small, humans weak, but now they saw the truth. Earth was scarred but unbroken. Humans were fragile but unyielding. Still, not all were ready to accept it. One younger alien clenched her fists. They destroy their world. They fight each other. How can that be strength? She demanded. The leader turned to her, her eyes burning. Yes, they destroy, they fall, but always they rise again, always they try once more. That is strength beyond ours. Silence filled the hall. The younger aliens had no answer, their pride collapsing under the weight of truth. At last one whispered, "So this man, he is not only himself, he is the voice of all who came before him." The leader nodded slowly. Yes, he is the echo of Earth. The starship hummed with quiet power, the screens fading to darkness. The alien girls stood together, their hearts heavy but changed. No longer could they see Earth as only dust. No longer could they see humans as only fragile toys. They had discovered something far greater, a force that had shaped a people who could suffer, bleed, fall, and still rise again. The leader closed her eyes, her voice a whisper, meant for herself, but heard by all. If their past is this strong, then their future may be stronger still. The others shivered, their laughter long forgotten, for the discovery had shaken them more than any storm. And in their hearts, a dangerous thought grew. Perhaps it was not humans who should fear the stars. Perhaps it was the stars that should fear humans. The night was quiet, the town wrapped in silver moonlight. The earthly man walked along the empty road, his steps steady as always. Behind him, shadows followed, silent but watchful. The alien girls had watched him for days, through storms, through fire, through struggle. Now their hearts burned with questions too heavy to carry in secret. The leader whispered to her companions, "Tonight, we end the waiting. Tonight, we show him who we are." The others nodded, though fear trembled inside them. It was not fear of being discovered, but fear of what he might reveal when he saw them. The man stopped near the old bridge that crossed the river. The water below moved like black glass reflecting the moon. He looked at the sky for a long time, as if he spoke to it in silence. Then he turned, his calm eyes resting on the shadows behind him. "You have followed me long enough," he said, his voice steady. "Come out." The alien girls froze. They had hidden themselves perfectly, their forms disguised, their movements silent. Yet he had known all along. Slowly, they stepped into the moonlight, their human disguises fading. Their true forms shimmered into view, their eyes glowing, their hair flowing like fire, their skin shining with alien colors. The earthly man did not flinch. One girl laughed nervously, trying to recover her pride. "So, you knew we were here, and yet you did nothing." The man's gaze was calm. "There was no need," he replied. "You watched, but you did not harm. Curiosity is not an enemy." The aliens exchanged uneasy glances. His words carried no fear, no anger, only truth. The leader stepped forward, her golden eyes burning like suns. "Do you not fear us?" she asked, her voice sharp. "We are not of your world, we carry powers you cannot imagine." The man studied her for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. "Fear is wasted on what I do not understand," he said. "I only fear failing, the ones who need me." The words struck the aliens harder than any weapon. They had revealed themselves expecting screams, panic, maybe even begging. But instead the man stood calm as the river. It was they who felt small under his gaze. One alien girl whispered almost to herself, "He should be on his knees, yet I feel as if we are the ones kneeling." Her words made the others shift uneasily, for they felt the same. The leader's pride burned, but even she could not hide the tremor in her voice. "You are only human, yet you face storms, fire, and even us without fear. Tell me, what is your secret?" The man looked at her, his eyes deep and quiet. "There is no secret," he said. "Strength is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to act even when fear is near." The silence that followed was heavy. The aliens had traveled across galaxies, carried weapons that could shatter mountains, but in that single moment, they felt weaker than the man before them, for he carried nothing in his hands. yet he held something greater in his heart. One of the younger aliens stepped forward. Her voice soft. "Why do you give yourself for others? You gain nothing." The man smiled faintly, the kind of smile born from pain and hope mixed together. "Because without each other we are nothing. Life has meaning only when we stand for more than ourselves." The aliens lowered their eyes. The leader clenched her fists, her pride warring with the truth pressing inside her. At last, she whispered, "Perhaps we were wrong." The man did not answer. He turned and walked across the bridge, his steps steady, his shadow stretching long behind him. The alien girls stood frozen, their glowing forms reflected in the black water. For the first time in their lives, they felt what it meant to be humbled. The leader watched him disappear into the night, her voice shaking with both fear and respect. "This human is stronger than we imagined." The others remained silent, their hearts too heavy with the weight of his words. Above them, the stars burned bright, but none of their shining worlds had ever shown them what they had found here. And in that quiet night, the aliens realized that the confrontation had not revealed his weakness. It had revealed their own. The night after the confrontation was heavy with silence. The alien girls returned to their ship, but no laughter filled the hall. Instead, their hearts carried a weight they could not explain. The earthly man had looked at them with calm eyes, and his words had pierced deeper than any weapon. Now they wanted answers, but not from their machines, not from their own pride. They wanted them from him. The next evening, the leader made her choice. "We will go to him again," she said, her golden eyes burning with something new, not to test, not to mock, but to ask. The others hesitated, fear twisting inside them, but curiosity was stronger, and so they agreed. They found him at dawn, by the river, where the water shone like silver. He was repairing a broken bridge, his hands rough, his body scarred, yet his face was calm, his movement steady. When he saw them approach, he did not reach for a weapon, did not run. He simply looked at them as if they were no strangers. "You came back," he said, his voice quiet. The leader nodded, though her pride made her stand tall. "Yes, we came back, because there are questions that will not leave us." The aliens surrounded him, their glowing eyes searching his face. One asked, "Why do you fight for others when you gain nothing?" Another added, "Why do you walk into storms, into fire, into danger without fear?" The leader's voice rose above them all. "Tell us, earthly man, what gives you this strength?" The man placed his hands on the wood before him, his eyes fixed on the river. For a long moment he said nothing. Then his voice came, low but steady. "Strength is not found in power, it is found in choice." The aliens leaned closer. Their hearts beating fast, he continued, "Fear comes to every man, pain comes to every life, but we are not judged by what we receive. We are judged by what we give." The aliens looked at one another, confused but moved. "Giving is weakness," one whispered. "If you give, you have less." The man shook his head slowly. "No. When you give, you grow. When you protect, you become stronger. When you stand for others, you discover who you truly are." His words fell like rain into their hearts. The leader's face hardened, yet her eyes trembled with doubt. "You say strength is not in flesh, not in weapons, then what is it?" The man turned to her, his calm gaze meeting her burning eyes. "It is in the heart," he said. "In love, in sacrifice, in courage that rises even when the body falls." The aliens could not speak. They had crossed galaxies, carried power, beyond human dreams, yet this man, with no machine, no throne, no army, had shown them something greater. They felt small, yet strangely full, as if the truth had broken something inside them, only to rebuild it stronger. The leader lowered her head, her pride fighting with the weight of his lesson. "All our lives we laughed at weakness," she whispered. "But now I wonder if what we called weakness was the very thing that makes you strong." The man did not smile, but his eyes carried warmth. "It is not weakness to care. It is not weakness to hope. It is not weakness to fight for someone. Else it is the greatest strength a life can hold. The silence after his words was deep. The aliens stood frozen, their glowing forms reflected in the river. One by one they lowered their eyes, not out of shame but out of respect, for they had come to Earth to laugh. But Earth had taught them instead. As the sun rose behind the mountains, the leader finally spoke again. "We came here thinking you were small, but now I see we were blind." Her voice shook, but her pride was broken. "Perhaps it is we who must learn, and you who must teach." The earthly man said nothing more. He simply turned back to his work, lifting the beams of the bridge with steady hands. But in the quiet of the morning, the alien girls felt their hearts change, and though they carried the power of the stars, it was his lesson they would remember most. The days that followed were quiet, yet heavy with change. The alien girls no longer laughed when they walked through the streets of the human town. They no longer pointed at the workers, the children, the old, and called them weak. Instead, they looked with new eyes that saw not weakness, but survival, not failure. But courage. The earthly man continued his life as before. He rose with the dawn, worked with steady hands, and gave his strength to those around him. He did not act as if he were being watched. He did not act as if he were special, but every action carried a quiet power that no one could deny. The leader of the alien girls stood one evening at the edge of the forest, watching him carry stones to rebuild a broken wall. Her golden eyes were no longer sharp with pride, but soft with thought. One of her companions approached her and whispered, "Sister, do you feel it too? This weight in the heart when we see him?" The leader nodded slowly. "It is called respect," she said, her voice low. The others gathered around, their glowing forms hidden by shadows. One whispered, "I do not understand. Why does respect feel heavier than laughter?" Another answered, "Because laughter is light, but respect carries truth." Their words drifted into the night air, and none could argue against them. That same night, they revealed themselves once more to the earthly man. He stood in the field, the stars shining above, when the aliens appeared in their true forms. He did not fear. He did not move away. He only looked at them calmly, as if their glowing eyes and radiant skin were no stranger than the wind. The leader stepped forward, her pride lowered, her head bowed ever so slightly. "We mocked you once," she said. "We called your people weak, your world small, but we see now we were blind." The man said nothing, his silence steady. She continued, her voice trembling. "You gave your life to others without thought of gain. You faced storms and fire with no crown on your head. You taught us that true strength does not live in power, but in heart." The other aliens bowed their heads as well. Their laughter had turned to silence, their silence to humility. One whispered, "We no longer look down upon your kind earthly man. We look up." The man's eyes softened, though his voice remained calm. "Do not look up, do not look down. Stand beside us," he said. "Respect is not worship. It is walking together." Those words struck them deeper than any lesson before, for in their world, respect was demanded, forced, taken by fear. But here, respect was given freely, shared between equals. The aliens felt their hearts shift once more, something blooming inside them they had never known. That night, they walked the streets of the town openly, their forms disguised once again as humans, but their laughter gone. Instead of mocking, they began to listen. They helped an old woman carry water, they lifted beams for workers, they even played with children in the square. For the first time they acted not as watchers but as friends. The people of the town welcomed them, not knowing who they truly were. They smiled at the strangers who helped, not realizing the strangers were beings from the stars. The alien girls felt something stir inside them, a warmth they had never felt on their own world. It was not power, it was not victory. It was belonging. The leader stood at the edge of the square, watching her companions laugh with the children. This time the laughter was not sharp with pride but soft with joy. She turned her gaze to the earthly man, who stood nearby with his calm smile. "Respect," she whispered to herself. Is the bond that makes the weak strong and the strong gentle? Her golden eyes lifted to the stars, and she wondered how she could ever return to her world unchanged. For Earth had given her people a gift they had never known, and it had come, not from weapons or machines, but from the heart of one simple man. The night sky was wide and endless, filled with stars that shimmered like silver fire. The alien girls stood together at the edge of the forest, their glowing eyes fixed on the blue planet below. For many days they had walked among humans, and for many nights they had watched the earthly man. Their journey had begun with laughter, but it ended with silence, respect, and wonder. The leader raised her hand, her golden eyes heavy with thought. "It is time," she whispered. "We must return to the stars." Her companions lowered their heads, sadness pressing in their hearts. For though they longed for their world, they knew they would never be the same again. The starship waited, hidden in the valley, its silver body glowing faintly in the moonlight. The aliens entered one by one, their steps slow, as if the earth itself held them back. Inside, the ship's walls pulsed with light, ready to fly beyond the sky. But none of them spoke, none of them laughed. Their hearts were too full. From the window of the ship, the leader looked down at the town one last time. She saw the people sleeping in their small houses. She saw the children dreaming, the workers resting, the earthly man standing quietly by the river, his shadow long under the moon, his face calm as ever. The leader felt a weight inside her chest, a weight she had never known. It was not fear, it was not pride, it was something greater. Her companions gathered around, their voices soft. "We mocked them once," one said, "but now I cannot laugh, not ever again." Another whispered, "I feel as though I should bow, yet he asked us not to bow, he asked us to walk beside." Their words trembled in the air, and the leader knew they spoke the truth. The ship rose slowly, the earth shrinking below, the seas glowed under the moon, the forests spread like green waves, the mountains stood like silent guards. Earth looked fragile, yet it burned with quiet fire. The aliens pressed their hands to the glass, their glowing eyes wide. "Such a small world," one whispered, "yet inside it carries endless strength." As the ship pierced through the sky, the leader closed her eyes. Her mind echoed with the man's voice. "Strength is not in power, it is in choice." She repeated the words softly, almost like a prayer. Her companions bowed their heads, each holding the lesson deep in their hearts. When the stars wrapped around them once more, the leader finally spoke. "Let this be our message to our people," she said, her voice strong. "Do not underestimate humans. Do not call them weak, for they hold a strength beyond measure." The others nodded, their faces solemn, their pride gone, their respect unshaken. Silence filled the hull of the starship as it sped through the galaxy. But it was not the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of change. Each of them carried the image of the earthly man, his scarred hands, his calm eyes, his steady voice. Each of them carried the memory of Earth, a fragile world that stood strong. At last, the leader turned her gaze back toward the distant planet, now only a blue star behind them. Her golden eyes softened and a faint smile touched her lips. "One day," she whispered, "we may need them." Her companions heard her words and felt their truth. For the galaxy was vast, full of storms yet to come, and in those storms, they knew the strength of Earth would shine. The starship vanished into the dark sea of space, leaving the Earth behind. But though their bodies left the planet, their hearts remained tied to it, forever changed by the man they had once mocked, forever bound by the lesson they had learned. And though no human knew their story, the stars themselves carried it, the story of alien girls who laughed at Earth until Earth taught them to bow in respect,